Learning Ally is a proud sponsor of the Empowered Dyslexia podcast. Learning Ally, a nonprofit education organization, helps to transform the lives of struggling learners by delivering proven solutions that help students reach their potential. We have a heritage of supporting students with a reading deficit like dyslexia. Our award-winning human-read audiobook solution helps students in grades 3 through 12 access books they want and need to read to help them succeed. Visit www.learningally.org for more information.
Hello world, wake me up to another good morning, time to go. Oh, we are all looking for adventure. We are all looking for
adventure. I'm your host, Stephen Yearout, and on this show, we're here to help each of us become a better informed partner in education. On this show, we discuss dyslexia, we discuss other related disorders, we discuss research, interventions, special education policy at the local, state, and federal level. We also interview experts in their fields, and the thing that I love the most is the personal stories. Be sure to like us on Facebook and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Let's make sure that please comment and share, because that helps us with our algorithm with YouTube. As always, you can get our podcasts on any of the apps that you enjoy listening to your favorite podcasts. Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Google, Alexa, now we're on Pandora. So, I mean, you name it, we're there. If you like watching the shows, obviously you can get them on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and now all of our shows are on IGTV on Instagram. So, season 3, I can't even believe that it's already season 3. We're going on 3 years now. Just to give you kind of an idea of where this has come from. I mean, it all came about from just an idea of how do we help other parents with the information that we have learned over the years of, advocating for our children, learning how, what are the laws, learning what are our responsibilities, what are the school's responsibilities, and how do we get our children the best, most scientifically proven interventions so that they can become the best version of themselves. We've had, quite a few speaking engagements come out of this. We're reaching a worldwide audience. I believe the last time we checked, we're in 69 different countries. And we've started multiple spin-off shows out of this. We have my son, Asher, who is doing the student edition of Empowered Dyslexia. We actually announced this this last year, but we haven't done anything with it yet, but it is coming. Empowered Dyslexia, all in Spanish. And we're really excited about Empowered Dyslexia Australia. That's going to be starting up this year. We're now a nonprofit 501c3, and there's so much more to come. So look out, 2021. We're coming in, kicking the door in. So today's topic is Married with Dyslexia. We have a very special guest. I've been with this person, or I've had this person in my life for 26 years. I wouldn't know what life would be like without her. She is an awe-inspiring wife, a mother of 3 amazing young men. She currently works at a local school district as the IT staff for the campus. And she's my best friend and, my life partner. So I want to introduce you to my wife. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
So,
Trying to make me cry already?
Yep. So 3 years. We're going on 3 years with this.
It's crazy. Fast. I didn't expect it to go this quick. Just from this idea of we need to get information out to people, to, okay, well then, really it's only been, this is the beginning of our third season, but December of 2018 is when we first came to the studio and had our onboard meeting and said, hey, this is what we're going to do, and signed a contract. So it's really been fast and furious and exciting and scary. And I mean, it's been amazing to watch you do this.
Well, I mean, it's something that wouldn't be possible without the support of you and the boys. And, I say it all the time, if you would have asked me, 4 or 5 years ago, if I would be doing anything in education, I'd have told you you're a fool. I mean, that's how much I hated it, right?
Right.
Being that this is the first episode of season 3, I thought it would be appropriate to have a discussion about what it's like to be married to a dyslexic.
Well, I feel like that's a loaded question. It's something for sure.
So let's start off by giving our audience just a little bit of background about who is Amy.
Okay. Well, I grew up as a military dependent, and so we moved around a little bit when I was growing up, and we made Dallas our home again in 1987. So this is pretty much home for me. And I was like a regular kid. I had a blended family, so maybe that wasn't as regular as what it seemed to us, where I have a stepsister and then I have half siblings. And so I didn't grow up with this giant family altogether. I had 2 sisters in my immediate household, and I'm in the middle. And then my dad remarried and had children, and so getting to know my other siblings as adults, or as an adult, really has been a lot of fun. I always thought I was going to be a teacher, and my paths took me a different route, so I didn't end up doing that initially. And when I decided to start working at a school, I started as a substitute teacher at the school that our boys were at. And that was really good for me. It was a good time for me to kind of get into education and see how things were going, and see, what really was going on in the classrooms and on campuses. And about that same time was when I realized this is something I really want to do, is work with kids. So I was at the charter school for a couple of years, and that was great. I took a year off, and now I'm in our local school district doing campus technology, which I really love because I'm still working with the kids, but I'm not necessarily responsible for them. So that's kind of nice too. So, I don't have to worry about homeroom classes and grading and stuff like that, which takes a lot of that added stress off of working in education and working in that education environment. So this is, I think, my 5th year in education or in an education setting. And, it's always been what I wanted to do. And so I just feel like it's very natural for me, and I've really enjoyed it. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
So you're the middle child.
Yes.
And what's the age difference between you and your sisters?
So my older sister and I are 11 months apart. And my younger sister and I are 2 years and 3 months apart. So we're all very close in age. And, so growing up together, it was kind of,
Yeah,
like,
built-in friends.
right, built-in friends for sure. Especially being in the military, having my older sister in the same grade as me even, from second grade moving forward. That was a lifesaver for sure.
So you were born in California, moved to Alaska. How was school for you?
School for me was really easy. I never really struggled in school, and I think part of it was because school's fun. I mean, let's face it. School used to be fun. School was fun for me. I always enjoyed school.
It's your story. You tell it.
School was fun for me, and I think it was very different on a military base possibly than what we see in a lot of our public sectors. Not that we weren't doing what the states require, but when you're on a military base, especially like when we lived in Alaska, you're just kind of your own entity. And we just got to do really cool things, I think. I remember music class was fun and art was fun. We did square dancing. We just had a good time. And school was never challenging for me. I don't remember really ever struggling in any particular area. Moving into junior high, when we moved back to Dallas, sixth grade was when we moved back to Dallas. And so I went to elementary school, my last year of elementary school here. And moving into junior high and high school, it just wasn't hard. And I look back and kind of kick myself like, I really could have done more. I didn't have anyone really telling me that, it was a good idea to get into some of the advanced placement classes or honors classes. Like, there was no one there to really mentor that piece. And I don't think that's anyone's fault. I think it was just, I got by. Everything was easy. So it just was what it was. So then through high school, I don't remember studying. I don't remember really having to work hard at any of it. It was just very natural and very easy to just go to school, do my work, come home, and that was it. It was not a challenge.
So school was easy for you. Was there any learning disabilities that you knew of in your family, your immediate family?
At the time, no. Looking back, I don't remember, for sure, there was no one diagnosed with anything. My sisters and I were all in gen ed classes. There was no issues that I knew of. Hindsight now, I look back and I'm like, oh, so-and-so really struggled in this area and maybe another one in this area. So there could have been possibly dyslexia, dysgraphia, there's several things now that maybe I would look at as a parent and say, we need to get this, let's kind of figure this out. But I think at the time, we didn't know enough, and we didn't have anyone else in our family that was struggling that we knew of, that would prompt any type of, investigating that further. So I feel like we all just kind of did our thing.
Yeah. And I know this is a question that really everybody around the world wants to know, is how did you meet your remarkable husband?
The movie star?
The movie star, no.
So I tease Steven because he gets phone calls from people all across the world really now. And, I make jokes, but I think it's really great that people, are obviously seeking him out to get information. I hate to tell people, but we met at a bar in Dallas, and, you don't say that and also say that I was 18 and had just graduated high school pretty much, a couple months after I graduated. And Stephen was 20. He was a bouncer. So there's that. And I thought, oh, well, I'm just going to meet this guy, hang out. We're going to go to some clubs and have some fun times, and that's it. So that's been 26 years. And, you know, I think it was just like most people when they first meet, especially when they're young, it was just a matter of, you know, let's go out, let's have fun, let's do some stuff. We didn't have any mutual friends that we knew of at the time. We didn't know anyone. Finally, after dating for a while and talking more about our lives and our families, I realized that Stephen knew some people that I knew that were my age. So we're a little bit, 2.5 years apart in age. So there were some people that we knew mutually, but we didn't know at the time that we were any shape, way connected. So that was kind of neat too, because we literally lived just a few
About 5
miles away from each other.
Yeah, about 5 or 6 miles away from each other.
Yeah, when I first moved back to Dallas, and you're in Garland, so we were very close as far as that goes. And so that was kind of fun to learn. But you know, life moves on, and here we are.
So, you know, let's go back to the school, talking about your school life. And at the time, you didn't know that I was dyslexic or anything about me. I don't even think you knew that I had quit school.
No.
So I started working in nightclubs when I was 17. Dropped out of school, started working in nightclubs. The one thing that I remember, we had only been dating for a few months, I want to say. And I don't know how the subject came up, but you had said that you had received a full scholarship to the University of Texas, the school that I always wanted to go to. The two top schools that I always wanted to go to was SMU and the University of Texas. And I remember I got really angry that you didn't go. And I was like, who can we call? You know, is there anybody we can call? Is there anybody we can, what are you doing? And you're like, no, I don't want to do this. And I understand why you did it, why you didn't go. But that always hurt me for you, because I felt like you had accomplished something that I couldn't have accomplished. And you were given something, not given, you earned something. And, you know, I loved you enough even then. I was like, I don't care if I lose you, but I don't want you to lose this. You know, looking back on it now, I didn't think education was that important to me, even then. But now looking back on it, I see how important it really was, right? And that was always, I felt, even though it wasn't because of me, I always felt responsible that you didn't go. So
obviously that was not your fault, and you are in no way responsible for me not going to college, because we met many months after.
Right.
I should have been in college. So, you know, again, I came from a time where people in my family, extended family, friends, I would say maybe 50% of the people that I grew up with and went to school with went to college. It didn't really matter your socioeconomic status. It was either half of them went to college or half of them didn't. And for me, it was never really on my radar necessarily, like this is a big push. Because to be honest, up until I was about 16, I thought I was going to go into the Navy. And then when I was smart enough to realize that meant boot camp, I decided that was not for me. So, I think that was about the time that I realized, well, maybe college is where I need to go. And, but again, it was still never a big push. And I remember being ready to go. And I recently talked to my older sister about this, maybe a year ago. And I told her, I said, I really think part of the reason why, and this was not to make her feel bad, but it was like this realization for me that part of the reason why I didn't go ahead and go to college was because my sister wasn't going to be there with me. And that was rough to realize. Because Jenny had always been there. So I think in my mind, I was like, I can't do this without her. And obviously I could have. And maybe I just didn't want to. And that's okay. And then she moved when we were 20 years old, or she was 20, I guess. She moved. And I went about my life and she went about her life. And we've been, best friends, obviously. But I think I was really afraid of what that meant to go and to be away and to be away from my family. And that that's hard when you look back at that. But it also, shows you that not much has changed in those 27 years now, because I still don't want to be away from my family, right? So, at 44 now, I sometimes am like, gosh, I should have done that. I could have done X, Y, Z, but I also know that had I done that, my life wouldn't look the same. And that's not okay with me. It's just not. I feel very lucky to have gone down the paths that I've gone down and to been able to experience the things that I've experienced, the people that I've met, and the things that I've been able to accomplish wouldn't have happened without you. So I have no regrets, and I certainly don't hold you anywhere responsible.
Well, and I'm not necessarily saying that I'm responsible for it, but I knew what it looked like. I knew what that side of it looked like.
Right.
I knew what failure looked like, and I wasn't afraid of failure, ever. And I mean, even now looking back on it, thinking about it, I was trying to protect you from that failure, from that regret.
Yeah.
So,
we're just going to be blubbering this whole time.
Do you, do you remember when you first found out that I was dyslexic?
And I've been thinking about this because I knew this was something we were going to talk about. And honestly, I've been thinking about it a lot, and I don't honestly remember when we talked about dyslexia for the first time. I feel like it was many years into our relationship, simply because I have a really good memory. So for me to not remember it means that it was probably so far below our radar that we only talked about it because we had to. And I think it could have been around the time you were about 25, and you were going to go to trade school to get your network engineer.
Yeah, I remember that the conversation was more along the lines of, I quit school and
This is why.
school there wasn't anything for me in school. And so I quit. And, back then I was a lot more stubborn than I am now. And, I don't think that I would have talked about it really. I mean, although I was always open and honest about it, right? But I don't think that's something that I would have necessarily brought up, because it was it was a time and a place that, I was a bouncer in a nightclub. I worked construction with my uncle, and
Right. And then it was like, hey, I'm going to do this. And,
yeah, I remember.
Okay, I didn't know anything about dyslexia. I didn't know what it was really. I knew it was some kind of reading disorder. I knew a little bit more than what the, general consensus of seeing things backwards. I knew that wasn't the case. I knew it had to do with your oral reading and not how smart you were, because for me to realize that here you are, you've been a bouncer in a club, you've worked construction with your uncle, and you've done fine. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm gonna go to trade school to become a network engineer and get all my Microsoft certifications and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, that sounds pretty boring, because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of reading, and you were really good at that. And so I had no doubt that you were going to be successful with that. I really didn't think dyslexia was going to cause an issue with any of that. I felt like you were determined at this point that this is what I'm going to do, and you just did it. I don't remember you struggling.
I'd worked in the bars for 10 years. 10 years, although it was fun, it was a lot of fun. But I also look at it as 10 years of my life that I could or should have been doing something.
Right.
So that's the reason why I remember it vividly, that I was up all night. I had probably worked and come home, and 3:00 in the morning, whatever, and laid on the couch watching TV, and the infomercials kept coming on. Get up and do something with your life, whatever, And I've always been that type of person that's all or nothing, both feet in. We're jumping in the deep end. We're not going to half step this.
Right.
So I remember waking up that next morning and was like, I told you, I said, I'm going to call this place and go to school. And I did.
You did.
And I ended up graduating with honors.
Yeah. On the dean's list. So we know you're capable.
So, it obviously, dyslexia isn't anything having to do with
Intelligence.
Right. Now that you know what you know about dyslexia, and you look back over our relationship, from dating till current, do you see how dyslexia could have affected our relationship, whether through communication, whether through...
Absolutely. Communication is probably the biggest key that we still struggle with, and I think most couples struggle with, most families struggle with. In fact, we had a conversation about this over the last couple of days with our boys, that if your biggest problem in your marriage or your family is communication, then you don't have a problem. You have an issue that needs to be worked out. that is not a problem. That is not a real problem.
It can turn into a problem.
Absolutely, it can turn into a problem, and it has turned into a problem in the past. But I think once we get to the point of not being able to communicate with someone is part of dyslexia. And I think that it's hard for people like me to look at you and say, I don't understand. Or it's easy for me to say, I don't understand. It's hard for me to understand it. It's still to this day, because I feel like, okay, well, we all know, it's all out in the open. We all know. And if you can't articulate how you're feeling, that's fine, but you need to at least tell me something. And I think that because that language barrier causes a problem with communicating, it's very natural for people to shut down and not want to talk about why they're upset about something, or if something is bothering them, or whatever it may be. And so that has, I think, drastically affected us over the years. Not so much anymore as it used to. I feel like it was very much I'm supposed to read your mind, and I'm supposed to know when something's bothering you and what I might have done to, encourage that behavior. Over the years, you've gotten a lot better with talking about, this is what's bothering me, and this is what we can do to, resolve the issues. But not being able to effectively communicate that is something that we see in our children. Not just our children, but in children. And that grows with them as they become adults. And so I do feel like not having proper remediation to work on those language skills affected you as an adult and affected me in our marriage.
Well, it's really easy to go from talking to so angry you can't see straight when you can't communicate what it is that you're feeling.
Right.
And then on top of that, from a man's perspective, you have a wife, now you have, 3 young kids. Although, would I say that my life was, my career was not successful? No. I think I've been fairly successful with the circumstances, right?
Right.
I always felt like I should have, and carried that for a long time, should have been more, should have been able to provide more. I look at, even with all the issues that my father and I had, I always looked at him as a provider. He always provided any and everything. And for whatever reason, I wasn't able to do as much as he did. So I always looked at that as being a failure. So it was always something that I carried. And the fact that, I didn't graduate high school, and, I've talked about this on the show before, and we've talked about this, is, the nightmare that I would always have about trying to go back to high school and graduate, and trying to get back on the football team, and trying to heal those wounds that I was carrying around. Even into adulthood, as early as, or as late as, in my 40s, I had that dream.
Right.
And not that it's different from women, but when a man is supposed to be the provider of the house and supposed to be the head of the house or the leader of the house or whatever you want to say, and you're struggling and carrying around all this baggage, and constantly trying to hold up that facade that, you're, I don't want to say more than what
Right.
you're what you're
Right.
at or whatever. It's sometime it's a house of cards, because at some point, and Asher actually on one of his shows, he talked about it perfect. He made the best analogy about dyslexia in life was a Jenga set.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how each time, a teacher or a parent or a student or whatever, says stuff about them,
Yeah.
it's
makes that remark, or
right.
yes.
It's like taking one of those pieces of the Jenga set out.
Yes.
And
Removes that foundation.
unfortunately, when you're an adult, even though you didn't play a part in this, we started our life with a Jenga set that was teetering.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, we did.
And, that's hard for me to deal with, that, now looking, I mean, we're in such a better place now than we ever did, but we, you're just as stubborn and bullheaded as I am, and we weren't going to give up. You were like, no, you're going to give up before I'm going to give up.
Basically.
And, so we were at a stalemate of not giving up.
Right.
And unfortunately, that was the best thing for us.
Yes, absolutely.
Fortunately, our stubbornness and you're not going to beat me saved our marriage.
Absolutely.
So, a few other ways I see that dyslexia, creeps in is things like, you were always tasked with filling out any type of paperwork, whether it be at the doctor or wherever, or if there was stuff that had to be read. I never even tried. I just like, here, it's you.
Right. And, I think that carries over into a lot of different aspects of a marriage and running a household and different things like that, because I'm a list maker and I like to make lists because I'm that much of a control freak. But I like to make my lists and have everything written down so that I can mark it off, because that's my satisfaction, is to be able to go through and say, look, I had 20 things on my list and 18 things are done.
And see,
check.
And for me, it's the exact opposite. When I
Right.
see the list, I look at, oh my God, look at all this crap that I have to do.
Right.
Or that Amy has put on my to-do list.
Right. But none of
And
it's for you. It's for me.
And it makes me angry.
Right.
And I'm like, no. And so I pushed back harder
Right.
on, I don't want to look at a list. I don't want to see a list. Nothing.
Right. It's true.
And that may
It's
be
challenging.
my ADHD
And it could be
coming in,
and it
but
could be. I do think that holistically we have things that happen in a marriage and things that you're responsible for, and part of that is our banking and saving and paying the bills and all of those things that you did not do one bit. I mean, ever.
And there's resentment that comes out of that, because you're like, well, I'm over here doing all this.
Right.
And why aren't you helping? And could I have done it? Probably.
Yeah, but you do it now.
But it would have taken 10 times longer for me to
Right.
do it. And I would have been in such a bad place
Right, and that was
after
with-
doing it.
That was in a time where we still had check registers and we wrote checks to pay our bills. And, now that things have moved online, you've taken a bigger role in that. And so you manage the household with that piece of it. I think there's like 2 bills that I'm basically end up being responsible for paying, just because I just, my work in education, you get paid once a month. So as soon as the check comes to the bank, mortgage gets paid right away. So that's like always been my thing. And I've always taken care of it. but you've gotten a lot better with stepping in and taking care of a lot of things that can be done electronically, just because it is that accessibility issue and it's that ease of use where before it wasn't. It was very daunting. And, so I think that as technology has kind of taken over, that's made a big difference in how you're able to take on different responsibilities as well.
Right.
So that's been a good thing.
So, and I should have asked this question a little bit earlier. When you were a little girl and you're daydreaming about getting married and whatever else, what was your idea
I always laugh at those questions.
What was your idea of a perfect marriage and a perfect family?
I never had an idea of what, a marriage or family was supposed to look like. And I know there are women out there who say, oh, when I was a little girl, I remember, wanting to have this kind of wedding. And like, none of that really was on my radar. I mean, I never thought this was what it's going to be like. I did, however, was fortunate enough to have been exposed to families, basically, right? So my mom and dad, and things were very specific. One thing that I knew was that they didn't scream and yell and fight. So I'm like, well, I'll never scream and yell and fight with my husband because my parents don't do that. And especially if they did it, they didn't do it in front of us. So I always, took that as something that was a positive. As an adult, do I think that's a positive? Not necessarily. Now, my parents got divorced when I was 11, so I know it was a little bit different. When kids are younger, the mom and dad usually will try and keep a little bit of a distance between what's going on if they're having issues, fighting or whatever, arguing. Keep that away from the children, and I get that.
See, I don't even understand that because
But
it was
when
an
our
active
boys-
war zone.
Right. But when our boys were little, we made sure we weren't arguing in front of them and different things like that. That was a detriment to me because I remember feeling like, why are my parents getting divorced? I didn't know there was any issues. Everything seemed fine. Everything seemed perfect. So I have that piece that I kind of took away from it. I also took away a piece of that 1950s kind of model of the wife has children. We have children. The wife stays home. She takes care of everything at the home, does all of the cooking and cleaning, and takes care of the children. And does it beautifully with makeup on and hair done. I watched my mom do that, and she did a fantastic job at it, and she always made it look really easy. But then on the flip side, as I got to be a teenager and she went to work, I got to see how hard it was. She was working. Then as I got into my 20s, we still weren't married. I was fortunate, I think, enough to be the last one home with my mom and my stepdad. So I got to know them on a different level than I think my other siblings did, which I am very grateful for, because that was a time in their marriage where I got to see a model of, which Stephen laughs at, but I witnessed a model of the wife says, this is what I want to do, and the husband says, okay. And it didn't really matter what aspect it was. If my mom wanted to go to the store, to the nursery, and buy a bunch of flowers to plant, that's what they did. I remember vividly, and we had a conversation with a friend who's from India and South Africa, or she's Indian from South Africa. And we were talking about different expectations and things that you see around the world. And one of the things we talked about was my idea of when I'm married, my husband's going to do these things because this is what men do. And the men build things and the men repair things and take care of things. And I watched my stepdad do those things. And I'm like, well, that's just what you do, especially if you know how to do it. If you know how to do it. And Stephen is very capable of doing a lot of things and building things and repairing things. And so I had this idea that that's what things would be like. But I vividly remember one Sunday after going to church, I was telling John, my stepdad, about a medicine cabinet in my hall bathroom at my house. A 1960s build. So it had the traditional metal medicine cabinet with the patinaed glass because it was so old and had been in the, moisture from the bathroom for all those years. But it would slide right out between the studs, right? So I was like, I want to get this out of here and make a shelf. And Steven's like, oh, no. And he's just kind of pushing me away, pushing it off. Well, I mentioned it to John, and we just happened to just talk about it. Well, then the next Sunday before before we went to church, I would go to church with them on Sunday mornings. And before we went to church, he asked me to take a measurement of that medicine cabinet. So I did. So we have breakfast after church and we're sitting there and we're talking. He brings up the medicine cabinet. And I said, I was just thinking, I have an insert with a shelf on it so I can put some stuff in there. And he gets up from the table and gets his keys. And he says, let's go to Home Depot. And we're going to buy the wood. So we went and we got the wood and we came home and he cut it and nailed it and put it all together for me and sent me on my way. And I went home and it fit perfectly. And I'm like, this is what husbands do.
Yeah. My
not that.
Well, no, I want to explain something though. One of the reasons why, even though I worked in construction for a long time, I could do manual labor. Right. But up until, not long ago, I couldn't read a tape measure. And
I would have never known that.
I couldn't read a tape measure, and because I was always in FOM, Fundamentals of Math, I couldn't add.
Do all your fractions.
Do all my fractions.
Right, okay.
So.
And you've never told me that.
I would much rather just not even do it than not do it right.
Okay.
I am a perfectionist where I want it to be perfect. So it's to a detriment that I want it to be perfect so much that I won't even start a lot of times.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So by no means is any of those things that I've said equal a perfect marriage or a perfect
but
life.
it's an idea of what you have,
right?
What you have dreamed about. I asked my mom the same question.
Right.
It's to put some contrast between what you grew up thinking that you wanted to have versus
what you got.
Right? So now what you got is 3 beautiful boys.
Yes.
And 3 dyslexics.
Yes.
Well, this is it's been a great show.
Yeah.
I'm excited for season 3.
Me too.
I'm
a lot
excited.
Of changes.
New adventures.
Right.
I'm excited that we have the other shows coming online.
Absolutely.
I'm so proud of the boys and doing student edition. I've said all along that we're going to change the world, and that's exactly what I mean is we're going to change the world. We're going to make sure that Any child that needs help gets help.
Yes.
Any family that needs help gets help.
Right.
We want to make sure that they get the correct information to help them in their fight. So thank you so much for joining us. It means the world to me. It really does. So please be sure to like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please leave us some comments. It helps with the algorithms. Telling me what a phenomenal job she did on this show. At the end of every show, we always recommend that if your child is struggling in school, don't wait.
Do not wait.
Don't allow them to make you wait.
Right. Don't let your child suffer, because that's what it is.
They are, and we know parents wouldn't allow that.
Right.
But it is suffering. Get your child tested as soon as possible. We have some templates on our website. We actually have a new URL. It's www.empowereddyslexia.org. O-R-G. Knowing is half the battle. Without knowing what we are facing, we don't know what intervention to provide.
Right.
We don't know what supports we can put in place. So, early detection is so important.
Absolutely. It's key.
So, like we said earlier, we're always here. If you need help, please reach out. Email us. Find us on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. Send us a message. We're here to help. Thank you for, the amount of support, the amazing amount of support that y'all have shown this show, and constant support each and every week.
It makes a difference.
It is an honor to do the show, and it's an honor to sit up here and provide the help and the support and fight for all of our kids. I'll lead the way every time. I'll lead us into battle if that's where we have to go.
Yes.
But we have to make sure that at some point, the fighting stops.
Right.
I don't want to fight. I don't want anybody else to have to fight. We don't need to fight. Just provide our kids the proper support and remediation that they need. So until next time, here is a word from our sponsors.
Oh, we are all looking for adventure. We are all looking for...
Learning Ally is a proud sponsor of the Empowered Dyslexia podcast. At Learning Ally, we are always looking for new ways to engage readers struggling with a reading deficit like dyslexia and help them work to their potential. Visit www.learningally.org to learn about the Learning Ally audiobook solution, including which of your students are eligible for access. If you live in Texas, we have great news. The Texas Education Agency provides access to the Learning Ally audiobook solution for all K-12 public and charter school students with reading deficits. Get started today by visiting www.learningally.org/Texas.